What happens when you take a tank chassis, put a radar, some low caliber high rate of fire guns on a tank? Well, let's find out. In 1966, the Bundeswehr was wanting to replace the obsolete M42 Duster. They needed a new, fully enclosed tank to serve as its replacement. The vehicle was soon to become the Flugabfwerkanonepanzer Gepard. The Gepard was developed by Oerlikon, Krauss Maffei and other manufacturers, which formed one of the best anti-aircraft defenders until the rise of surface-to-air missiles. The rise of aircraft in the First World War opened new gates for a new form of combat. This also meant that the enemy wanted to shoot down the planes, thus anti-aircraft was probably in its most basic form. Soon, trucks were seen with anti-aircraft guns of all lengths and calibers on the back, and this also spread across the interwar period. German cargo trucks such as the Sonderkampffahrzeug 10-4 and 6-2 had 20mm and 37mm guns. Guns such as the Flak 41 proved effective in bringing down aircraft. Tanks such as the Flakpanzer or VFW were vehicles with large guns fitted on pre-existing tank cars. The 8.8cm Flak 41 would be used by Rommel to defeat heavy B-1 Bisses of the French army during the invasion of France, and then became an effective anti-tank weapon. Similar guns were used on tanks such as the Tiger 1 and 2. This is a story for another time. The Tiger 1 will hopefully come later this year, however I'm drifting away from the topic of this video. More and more vehicles are being used to defend against the air. Surplus tank hulls were now beginning to be used as mountings for turreted anti-aircraft guns. There was even a Gepard which came before the West German one. It was the Flakpanzer 38T Gepard. Like its distant modern relative, it shares something similar. It has a hull of a pre-existing tank. The Flakpanzer 38T came from the Czech-designed Panzer 38T, and the Gepard came from the Leopard 1. Back to the development of the SBAA. Around halfway through the war, the Germans created the Wirbelwind. It was a turreted tank on a Panzer IV chassis and mounted 4 20mm guns. The turret was not fully enclosed, which exposed the crew. A few other Flakpanzers were produced and proposed, which included the Flakpanzer 341 Oerlikon. It was a fully enclosed SBAA which had twin 37mm guns. I made a video on this around a month back, so please feel free to check it out. The Second World War had come to an end, but tensions were rising between the US and Soviet Russia. The Cold War was starting. The jet age meant that jets could travel twice and if not triple the amount of speed a World War II fighter could fly at, so guns was considered to be obsolete. The Americans stopped development for SBAAs in the late 50s, with further emphasized on the M42 Duster. The Duster was used in Vietnam but used in a ground support role instead of its intended use to be countering the Vietnamese Air Force. The Russians also developed a similar SBAA, the ZSU-57, which featured twin 57mm guns which could fire at a reasonable rate. These two SBAAs had low-velocity, slow-firing guns, which were highly unlikely to stop an aircraft going Mach 1 or above. Surface-to-air missiles were seen as the next step up, and therefore these two SBAAs did not single-handedly protect the skies from the enemy. The Bundeswehr wanted to get rid of their aging M42 Dusters, so they looked for replacements. Two projects were investigated. The first was the Matador, designed by Krauss Maffei, Rheinmetall, AEG and Siemens. The other prototype was designed by Oerlikon, Porsche and a few other manufacturers. These prototypes were the Matador and 5PFZA, in which the 5PFZA was chosen as the best vehicle. A test batch was ordered and named the B1, which were delivered in 1973 under the designation of 5PFZP1. By September of 73 it was designated the Flugabfwerkanonepanzer Gepard. In English, Gepard means cheetah. The first order was placed of 420 vehicles. After the first 195 tanks were completed, the Siemens laser rangefinder was mounted on the vehicle. The Gepard has seen service since the 70s and only has just been retired by the Bundeswehr in around 2010. You may think that the hull of the tank is similar to one of my previous builds, the Leopard 1A3, which came out last week. Both tanks use the same hull. The Leopard 1 hull is almost untouched in order to complete this process. It was fitted with an extra 6 24-volt batteries, and the distance between the third and fourth road wheel was also a tad bit wider. The engine under the engine deck was the same 830 horsepower MU-MB-CA M500 diesel engine. However, in addition, there was another engine with an original Leopard 1's AMRAC would have been. It was a Daimler-Benz OM314 4-cylinder diesel engine to supply the power of the radar, turret traverse and other electrical systems. The exhaust from this engine is on the left-hand side of the hull. The Gepard has only 3 crew members, a commander, driver and gunner. The gunner and commander both have stabilised panoramic sights, which are integrated into the turret roof. Both gunner and commander share a large hatch in order to escape the vehicle. The large turret is a big change to the Leopard 1's original turrets. When it came out in the 70s, the equipment was extremely advanced, and one of the most dangerous anti-aircraft platforms ever produced. The Gepard's armament was unforgiving. Twin 35mm Oerlikon KDA cannons, which were 90 calibers in length. These could fire a total of 1,100 rounds a minute. The guns could be elevated to an almost 90-degree state and could depress 10 degrees. It could fire a variety of rounds such as semi-armor-piercing high-explosive incendiary rounds to frangible armor-piercing discarding saber rounds. The cannons work in unison with the radar system and rangefinder. The Gepard started off by using Doppler radars. The Doppler effect is used to calculate the velocity and distance of a selected target. An MPDR-12 Doppler surveillance radar is mounted on the rear of the turret and has a range of 15 kilometers. The radar searches for targets within 15 kilometer radius. When an aircraft is identified as hostile, the radar can track its speed, distance, elevation and range. Over the years, the Gepard has been gradually upgraded. The Doppler radar system has been replaced with an S-band radar. S-band is part of the microwave band in the electromagnetic spectrum, in which frequencies from 2 to 4 GHz, which is similar to what NASA uses, as well as Bluetooth and Wi-Fi devices. Also, in combat, Gepards would be deployed with Stinger SAM teams, which could take advantage of the Gepard's radar. This is not really used anymore, as the Gepard's success with the Ocelot light flak vehicle, which was based on the Weasel IFV, can still do the same job with ATGMs and SAMs. Just like the Leopard 1, the Gepard has many different operators. These operators include Dutch, Jordanian, Brazilian and many more. Competitors of the Gepard's class are quite interesting, such as the American M247 Sergeant York of the M163 Vulcan, Type 87, Chieftain Marksman and Soviet ZSU-23. These are all SPAAs from the Cold War which have guns and radar but no SAMs. Thank you very much for staying to the end and watching. If you would like to support me, then please consider subscribing. Next video will be stepping back in time to the Second World War. The subject of next week's video is one of the most iconic and most well-known tanks of all time. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, stay safe in these difficult times.